Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this NHC webinar promoting our Early Years and Primary Conference, which will be on Thursday, the 12th of November. And I've got with me today Julian Grenier, who is on my, which way is that, left? I'm not sure. You've got your screen configured. Hi, Julian. Julian's on mute, but he's nodding, so that's good. And below him, Sarah Hewitt-Clarkson, who is our NHD primary lead. So welcome all, and we're here really today to have a bit of a fireside chat and talk about what we've got lined up for our Early Years and Primary Conference and talk through some of the issues around what's happening at the moment. I'll do a little bit of preamble, and I know Julian's got a presentation to give us, and we'll see where we get to, shall we? So first of all, to say, as I say, the Early Years and Primary Conference is on Thursday, the 12th of November. It's out there on the website and on Eventbrite. It will, as you'd expect, be wholly online this year. We've been working with a company called VFairs to make the whole event as interactive and compelling as we possibly can, as if you were there. And we hope this quick preview today gives you a taste of some of the things to come and what kind of things you might expect there. We're promoting it to you and to give us something to promote it more widely. If I say a little bit about my two colleagues here today, I'm sure they'll correct me if I've got it wrong. They'll come off mute and shout or throw things or something. I'll start with Sarah and then Julian. Sarah, it says here, is NHC's lead for all things primary. She's a head teacher at Anderton Park Primary School, a born and bred Brummie, and I won't read everything I found out about you on the web, but there was a bugle involved at some stage, so there's a joint guilty pleasure we have there. Sarah, you'll know because she was TS Person of the Year last year for her stance about her school's teaching of LGBTQ+ issues. So she got a lot of coverage for that and well deserved too. I've got lots more I can say about you, so I'll probably let you say it yourself because I'm sure that would be more sensible. Basically, her background is being a teacher governor, a middle leader, senior leader, and a current primary school head. And Julian is the head teacher of Sheringham Nursery School and Children's Centre in Newham, East London, part of the world I know very well, which has been rated outstanding twice by Ofsted. He's a national leader of education and one of the co-founders of the East London Partnership Teaching School Alliance. And he's written on early education and childcare, both jointly and as a sole author on successful early years Ofsted inspections, which is obviously a timely book and I'm sure flying off the shelves at the moment, given all the excitement we're having with Ofsted. Just going to say a few little housekeeping issues, and then we'll kick off. Just to say we've got a few people in today, which is great. You'll see as you move your cursor around, I think at the bottom and maybe at the top, depends how your screen's set up. There's a list of participants and a chat function. Your screen name and questions can be seen by everyone else. That's the way Zoom sets things up. So if you want to be anonymous, you'll have to keep quiet. But we hope we can have an open and interesting chat, and hopefully we'll be able to unmic people and get people to fully interact with the process. So we'll have a bit of a chat first. Julian's got a presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions and discussions. So yeah, we'll start the road. I suppose the main thing to say about our Early Years and Primary Conference, we've got a full and packed programme lined up, and details are on the website. And I won't list everybody who's speaking there. We've got 3 keynote speakers who will be interesting, and then a mixture of 8 breakout sessions, which cover a mixture of policy issues that are directly affecting people at the moment, and then stuff about resilience and well-being and things that you need as a school leader just to keep going. That's probably enough of me talking. Can I ask Sarah and Julian to take themselves off mute? Because they're just sitting there nodding at me, and it looks a bit like a star in the show trial, which I'm sure is as anathema to them as it is to me. So Sarah, Julian, who wants to say that? Have I introduced you correctly first? Have I correctly got everyone's name right?
Yeah, you have, Andy. And also, can I just say, my office isn't normally full of balloons. I'm a primary head, but it's not that much fun all the time, but I was 50 yesterday. There you go, confirmation of my age. And I don't want to take them all down because they're so lovely. But yeah, you've got everything right, Andy. Yeah, the bugle, I've forgotten about that. I was in the Girls' Brigade when I was when I was a child, and I was the only person who could play the bugle. Everybody else was on the drums. So yeah, I can play the bugle a bit. And yeah, head teacher at Anderton Park Primary School in Sparkhill in Birmingham, a great school. Love it. In fact, yesterday when I was 50, I reminded myself I started here when I was 36. So and before that I worked in Dudley, and this is my first, I'm a Brummie, but this is my first Birmingham school, and I've been here 14 years, so absolutely love all aspects of it, even at the moment when we're all a bit exhausted.
Wonderful. And Julian, hi.
Yeah, well, sorry for the lack of balloons, but anyway, it's very nice to meet you, Andy and Sarah. So
very nice,
yeah,
earbuds,
yeah, thank you. So that's just because as the years have passed, my hearing really isn't up to Zoom. So I found that these have kind of made a big difference. And oh, Sarah, I really relate to what you say about how tired everyone is. So it's been a great half term here. I'm so excited that everything has gone as well as it has, and feedback from the parents has been really humbling, and the teamwork that's happened. But yeah, we're kind of crawling to half term now. I think there will be other people online who are equally annihilated by tiredness. So it's very nice to see your two fresh faces this morning and sparkly balloons. Give me a lift.
Good. I'm glad we're in the business of doing that. Yeah, I don't have balloons because it's been a while since I was 50, but maybe that makes Sarah feel a little bit better. I don't know.
Have them anyway.
So I mean, I think the idea of this is to promote our conference, and the idea of the conference itself really is to be a bit of a relief, a bit of a lift. We hope a bit of a celebration, really, of what it's like for primary heads and leaders in early year settings at the moment. Just because we know it's so tough at the moment, and times are so hard. It's so stressful. No one's had a break really since February, yeah, it's a lonely furrow being a head teacher. So it's a chance for people to get together, and so what I hope we've done is mix in some presentations and breakout sessions on the positivity side, on promoting well-being, on how to be the best leader you can be, for a chance for people to get together and talk and share notes, and you know, the breakout sessions and the actual breaks in the conference are there to allow people to talk to others and compare notes. So you know, I think that will all be important. I mean, probably best if you tell me what's it. How does it actually feel at the moment being a school leader and going through this? I mean, is it different in Birmingham to how it is in other parts of the world, given sort of how lockdown is and isn't happening? How does it feel? What's it like in your part of the world? Perhaps Sarah, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think even, you know, I'm in the centre of Birmingham, just about 1.5 miles out of the city centre. I think there are 20 primary schools within a mile radius of my school, so there's tons of us, and but even so, the difference in how in what we're experiencing and how we're experiencing it is vastly different, actually. So a school down the road had 3 whole year groups off, I think 300 children off. A couple of weeks ago. We just had 1 class that we had to send home for 5 days for various reasons. Another school down the road had 4 year groups off. And another school, a biggish school down the road, has had nobody sent home. So even though we're very similar and we're facing very similar things, I think it's very idiosyncratic what seems to be happening. I also have 2, my daughters are secondary, and they're at different secondary schools, so I get a bit of a perspective from that. And I know at NAHT we have quite a lot of secondary heads, and I think the issues at secondary, both of my daughters have been sent home for 2 weeks at a time. My youngest is on her second bout of 2 weeks at home, And it seems to be, there seem to be more COVID positive children, I would say, at secondary school from talking to heads than there are at primary schools. I think from what I know, the primary issues are an adult, so a lunchtime supervisor or a teaching assistant or a teacher who has been tested positive, rather than children who've been tested positive. So, and you know, I mean, we had national exec meeting last week, and the West Midlands meeting last week as well. And you know, some people have spent £70,000-80,000 on supply teachers. We've spent almost nothing because we've managed to do it with senior leaders. So it's very, very different. And I think this is part of the exhaustion that people are feeling, that we are all doing our very, very, very best. And it's very different. And really not many people have answers, because it's such a political ball as well. It's such a political game. And even what we're seeing at the moment with Manchester and number 10, you know, it's a political thing as well as a health thing, as well as an education thing. And then when we see different parts of our nation, different nations doing things slightly differently, there is that feeling, and I'd be interested to see what Julian thinks about this, that yes, of course we all want our schools open, and we do, and it's been great, but that kind of this doesn't quite make sense. I can be around 600 people here all day, every day, yet it was my birthday yesterday, I couldn't see my parents. And we do it, and we're in, and we are, there's, you know, 500 kids here, nearly 100 staff, off and on throughout the day, parents at the end of the day, and it's almost like we're just fingers crossed and doing as much and a bit more, always a bit more than we think we should or we could or whatever. It's nerve, you know, people are nervous, people are anxious, and families look to head teachers to have all the answers. And so we're expected to be kind of COVID professors, as well as all the other things that we're expected to be. So I think it is vastly different, and I don't think it's necessarily a kind of urban, rural thing, or large school, small school thing. I just think it's different depending on where you are and what's going on.
I think you're right, Sarah. And people do have different interactions, like you say. You've got children at different schools. I've got children at different schools, and in different phases, and in different parts of the country as well. You know, and you know, just moving from tier 1 to tier 2. What are the rules? What are the rules this week? How have they differed to last week? You know, and there are local lockdowns which make things different, and Wales is doing something completely different. It's really hard to keep on top of all that. And I can see why people come to you as some kind of God figure, for want of a better way of putting it, saying, "Yeah, you must know all the answers. You're the head teacher. How does it resolve?" So Julian, does that chime with you in a different part of the world and a different phase? What are the similarities there for you, and what are the differences?
Yeah, so certainly, I think schools, it's been another one of those periods when we've seen how central schools are in their communities. So there aren't necessarily that many places in a lot of communities where all the different parents and families mix and have a shared experience. And a local school is one of those places. And as a result, I think a lot of people do look to the lead that we give. It has been a really shattering term, but it's also really reminded me of how fundamentally important early years education is for children, and the whole moral purpose, I guess, the whole reason that I do the job has really been reinforced, because we have seen children coming back, you know, who've had pretty bleak periods since March. You know, we are an area with very overcrowded housing, lots of multi-generational households. We're the part of England that had the highest death rate during the height of the pandemic earlier in the year. And those little children some of them have really had a hard time. But what's fantastic is the resilience of those children and their capacity to bounce back, given favourable circumstances and support. And that's what I love about the job, is that we're full, we've got the children in, we're working closely with the parents, And aren't children just phenomenal for the way they can come back? And I don't mean to downplay the cases that are tricky and are going to need long-term support, but the resilience of children and the importance of early years, that has really kind of come home to me even more powerfully in this recent period. And I've been very proud to be here leading this nursery school in Newham.
Yeah, yeah. Are the children in nursery phases aware of what's going on? I mean, children that age do tend to take things a lot in their stride, but you can't avoid it because it's there all the day. Are they just finding ways to adapt to it, or is it just sort of they're breezing through it in a way that children fantastically can do that we adults couldn't possibly?
Yeah, I think some are, and I think some have been made extremely anxious by the period that they've been through, and it's taking them a lot of time, and we've needed to give them a lot of care and work very closely with their parents to get them to a place where they feel confident to play again and to do things with other children. So it's been very mixed experience, I'd say, for the children, the children in our community. But yes, as I said, it has really brought home the life-changing potential of early years education for young children in environments like this and all over the country that colleague head teachers are leading. You know, they're making a huge difference to children and families.
Yeah. And what's the best way we can support each other as school leaders? Not that I'm a school leader, I'm a representative body, but you know, given how lonely it can be, what's the best way that we can all help each other, you know, through these difficult times?
I think there's many strands to that, really. If we're talking about a union response, I think the NAHT are doing a great job in fighting some of the stuff that is worrying all school leaders. So as well as all the stuff that Julian and I have talked about, there's Ofsted looming in January, or now, but that's a visit. There's you know, a year 2 phonics test, a statutory test that is imminent. There are all the rest of the statutory testing that is really worrying people. So from a union point of view, they're fighting that for us and with us, which I think is really good. I know members have really liked the letters and the communication that Paul Whiteman has put out to members directly. That's a real uplift. But I think it's important for people like me. So I'm on National Executive, fairly new to National Executive, that not everybody is on National Executive. Not everybody hears all the conversations. And actually the vast majority of our members are not even a local level executive. They're just leaders in school getting on with it, and how we pass some of those messages on to people. And really, I think what is incredible is the honesty with which people are speaking currently, because there has been I mean, probably still is, almost like a facade that's like leaders have to put on about how, you know, we're coping with everything and how everything's amazing, and yes, we love a challenge as head teachers, and you know, that kind of attitude. But actually people are being very honest at the moment, and people are about their exhaustion, and that's quite difficult, because that is also a balance that you play with the press, for example, who sometimes can say, oh, you know, teachers have all these holidays and now they're moaning about teaching kids. You know, so it's a constant balance being a leader about, yes, being the face of passionate, energetic people who are leading the way, but with a sense of honesty that this is really hard, and harder than other things, because we've never faced this before. And at the same time, there are things, which is why I think that this conference is so great, because it's just a reminder that there are normal things we need to think about, and gives us a chance to listen to other people who may just, you know, refill our energy batteries a bit, and also give us some stuff that we think, oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that, or that's a really good point, I need to really look into that, because it's so easy to get carried away with COVID. And different days are very different for that. You know, if you have a positive case, that takes you down a whole different path, but then you might have weeks where, you know, you don't have that. So I think listening is it's a bit of a cliche, but often people don't want you to have a magic wand. They just want you to listen. It's like kids, they just want you to listen. When they've got an issue, miss, I need to tell you something, you know, you go, okay, go on then, tell me. And they don't want you to come up with a solution often. They just want you to listen. And that's quite hard in school, to give people time to talk and listen, especially when you can't actually meet in a room for longer than 15 minutes. So tricky.
Yeah, I was smiling with recognition there, because when we were planning the conference, our first blank piece of paper was, I think I just had the word COVID-19 written on it. Like, how do we do a conference about that? And then it was like, how do we do a conference about coping with that and bouncing back from that? And then we thought, actually, COVID's there and in the background and the key thing, and it's interwoven into everything. But that's not really what we want a conference about. We want to tell people, yeah, life is still going on, and Ofsted will still inspect you. What do we do about that? You know, there is still policy being made. There are still things happening in the early years sector, in primary sectors, in children's centres. How's that actually going to affect you, and how are you going to cope with that, as well as everything else that's coming down the track? So yeah, you know, I really get that. We've tried to do a bit of mix and match in that, which is a perfect cue up there, if it works, for Julian then to give us a bit of a sneak preview. Is that okay, Julian? Can you are you set up to tell us a little bit about Development Matters? And
yeah.
Are you okay with the technology in terms of, can you screen share from your end, or would you like us to?
Well, I hope I can. So
okay.
Here goes in a moment. So I guess
there's
just
a big green button with share screen written on it, which usually won't.
Yeah. So, but I think just to pick up on what Sarah was saying, I do really agree that we've got to look to the future here, and we've got to think beyond just the day-to-day difficulties that we're in. And yeah, of course, we all have days or even weeks where we can't really put our head up beyond dealing with immediate issues. But somewhere in our heads, or in the heads of one of our senior leaders in school, has got to be that capacity to look ahead and to think ahead, and to think about the future. And that's why I was really pleased to be asked to take part in the conference, and that's great. So yeah, I'm going to try and share my screen. Okay. So you know, hopefully that's going to work smoothly. And let's see.
That's looking good.
Okay, it's set.
I'll put myself on mute. Leave it to you. Oh.
Okay, that wasn't the screen I was trying to share there. So this might be one of those awful moments. Let's see. Okay, that's not working out for me. So just give me one moment.
Okay, if that doesn't work out, you send me the slides, so I've got them here.
I'm happy to share if you'd like me to do it.
Okay.
That sounds like an excellent idea. Yeah, it will dig me out of a very deep hole.
Thanks. That's Laura who's doing the technical assistance, not some kind of Deus Ex Machina that's stepped in there. Perhaps Laura, perhaps if you can do that, and Julian, just shout when you want Laura to change slides, and I'll put myself on mute and leave you to it.
Great, thank you so much for that. And Andy, kind of cut me off if I kind of take up too much time here, won't you? So if you can put the PowerPoint on play for me, that would be great.
One moment, I just need to.
Sure.
It's not letting me do that, I'm afraid, but I think we can work with what we've got for now.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. But we just seem to get those days, don't we, where the tech just isn't really playing ball. So so I'm the practitioner that led the process of the revision of Development Matters for the DFE, and I guess one of the things that I've been constantly sharing with school leaders is the fact that unless you're an early adopter school, the reformed EYFS and the updated Development Matters don't come on stream till September 2021. So there's a really important message there about not getting ourselves into one of those places where we're trying to implement something at speed particularly at the moment, which is about the worst time imaginable to do that, but that we should be just taking this in our stride, having some time to think it through, and prepare ourselves and our teams for it, which I know is different if you're an early adopter school, and the session will also be supportive for early adopter schools. And I think anyone who is out there early adopting, really heartfelt thanks to you, because we've had so much really useful feedback from those early adopters who've really done a great job for the sector in trialing and checking out and seeing what works and what needs a bit of unpicking in those new materials. So if you can move on to the next slide within that window. So I'm going to be co-presenting with Tanya Chaudhary, who is our Senko here. And she is busy teaching at the moment and isn't available to join in now. And Tanya has done a lot of work to think about how we can do more to make sure that every child thrives in the early years. And that is really what the updated development matters is all about. It's about making sure that we do the best for every child and that we don't end up expending huge amounts of effort on activities which really don't help children. So if I go on to the next slide, probably first and foremost of those activities is the sometimes hugely disproportionate work that goes into tracking and data in the early years. So we've somehow or the other ended up in a place where, for example, many children in the reception year, there'll be far more assessment and tracking of those children across more areas of learning than pretty much any other children in a primary school. And that is not a sensible place for us to be in. And we've seen from lots of surveys and other work that's been done, including some of the great work by the NAHT around teacher and head teacher wellbeing, that this is having a really debilitating effect on a lot of our leaders and practitioners as well. So part of the corner that we're trying to turn here with the updated development matters, which comes online in September 21, is to get away from the idea that everything early is about all of these different age-related statements in development matters and then maybe breaking them down into, emerging and secure and giving children points as to where they are on entry and tracking their progress in that way. It's not proportionate and it isn't helping children to learn in the early years, and it is damaging practitioner and teacher well-being, and it's taking us away from the things that will actually make a positive difference to children's learning. So there's significantly less emphasis on tracking and data in the updated guidance, and it's an attempt to bring assessment in the early years into the same space that assessment is in the rest of the primary years, which is that it isn't about a lot of data and levels. What it is about is the design of appropriate and a high quality curriculum for your children in the early years. And I would really stress "your" in that sentence. It's all about what's right for the children in your school and in your setting. It's not about having this enormous list of statements to tick off and cover. Teachers, head teachers, early years educators are the experts on the children in their schools and their local communities. And what's right for the kids here in this part of East London isn't going to be right for somewhere else in the country. There's much more emphasis in the updated EYFS on professionalism, making the right choices for the children we're working with. And that's why the document is considerably shorter. So there's much more space for us to offer the sorts of teaching and learning and care activities that are right for the children that we're working with. So if I just move on to the next slide here, we have to be really worried about some of the gaps by the end of the early years. Children with SEND are 10 months behind other children, and it's 15 months if they have an EHCP, which is a staggering gap when you consider that those children are only 4 and 5 years old. Disadvantaged children, on average, 4 months behind their peers. And this is, of course, before the impact of COVID. So we have got to really use our efforts to tackle some of those inequalities, because they're not going to go away as a result of this pandemic. If anything, we're all aware that the pandemic has affected children and families terribly unequally. So that focus on equalities is going to be really important as we emerge from this period. And the final theme, which Tanya and I are going to be covering, which is on the last slide here, is about the critical importance of working with parents to support children's learning, because that partnership with parents, we know, is one of the most powerful forces that will change things for the better for children and families. But there's a lot we don't know about working with parents. So we'll be considering some of those issues and thinking about how we can point to ways forward for the early years sector. So we're really looking forward to delivering this. I'm very sorry that Tanya hasn't been able to join me this morning to co-present, but she will bring a wealth of experience and also practical approaches to tackling these issues as a teacher and as a school leader.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julian. So that's a really helpful overview, and I'm glad we got the slides to work and accompany it as well. And so a really useful taster of what you and Tanya will be telling us about at the conference. And one thing that immediately struck there is the importance of working with parents, given that children have been out of settings for on and off for such a long time. You really do have to work with parents at the moment to say, how is your child developing? Where are they at? Because you haven't had them in your care in the way that you would usually. So there'll be a great deal to do in terms of getting parents aware and signed up and talking to them. Yeah. Also, the other thing I want to say is fantastic on timing as well. You said I might need to come in and shove you off, and I haven't at all, and that was perfect. So thank you for that. So what we have got time for is if people want to raise a virtual hand, we can unmute people, and if there's anything you'd like to ask Julian or Sarah, either about the conference or about what it's like for them, or if you just want to download and say, my God, it's stressful at the moment, and you want to talk and let Sarah listen to you and nod in the way she's become accustomed to, or Julian, we've got plenty of time to do that. I'm just looking at the chat function to see if people want to do that. I know it's always hard to get anyone to go first on these things.
Can I just chip in, Andy, while we're seeing if anybody's got any questions? Just even in that brief summary from Julian, I'm busy writing notes myself, just on your little summary, Julian. So your when you do a workshop with Tanya on the 12th, it's just something new to think about, which is just great. I'm sitting here in my office, my nursery's down that way, and my reception classes are in a different building, and I'm thinking, thank goodness you've just said what you said, about a much smaller document, a shift in emphasis from everybody assessing everything all the time on post-its, and actually getting back to what do our children need to thrive. And I love that word, thrive. We use that quite a lot in school. Flourish, not just come to school and go home again, but actually flourish, bloom, blossom, and start that love of learning. Or not start it starts at home, but from a school point of view, make sure that is part of their little beings, and that's not completely crushed by have you updated your profiles, how many post-its have you got, did you sign and date them all, that kind of thing. So it's and it's something I haven't really spent much time on, because I've got my early years team who've been thinking about that. So, but I should on the head. So it's really great to hear that, and just to hear the brief philosophy really behind it, and how you were involved in the rewriting of some of that is just brilliant. It's exactly what we need, and thank goodness for people like you who get this and have the power, if you like, to change what's coming next year. And thank you for all you've done on that. It's great.
Yeah, well, I feel a smidgen of pressure now to deliver an awful lot in the session, but that was such a lovely thing to say, Sarah. Thank you. And I think one of the things that has come out of the early adopters, which has been very interesting, is that it has required some bravery from school leaders to recognise that, of course, we all feel massively accountable for every child in our school, but we've got to shift the focus of that responsibility away from expecting a ton of data from our reception and our nursery teams, and into a place where we feel professionally more confident about the quality of the early years education and the outcomes for the children. So it's not an easy road necessarily for senior leaders in school to travel, especially as not everyone who leads a primary school has had that much experience working in the early years. So there are some challenges in here around, I think, trust and faith and professionalism as shared virtues for improving education for children, rather than a sense that we need to see evidence that children are making progress in reception. We need to see evidence that children are making progress in nursery. So it is, it's not an easy road to travel. We do all feel, as leaders, so accountable for those children.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if teachers were just allowed to teach? Wouldn't it be fantastic to go back to that? And you just allowed to lead your setting. Yeah, no, I have a lot of sympathy with that. And yeah, there's a lot of accountability out there, because people like to measure things, because then you can then report on things, and there's just so much process around it. But yeah, wouldn't it be wonderful just to be able to teach?
I think I know that all of us, we like to measure things, because we like to see in more than an anecdotal way how this amazing little child has, they came in here, whether it's how they speak, how their confidence, their social interaction, how they hold a paintbrush, whatever it might be. We want to see that. And we want to track that. We want to be able to say they were here and now they're here, or they were here and now they're here, and we think they need a bit more help with that. That's the whole process. But it's so skewed, as Julian said, in early years, as it just takes up so much time compared to assessment in other phases, and of course it takes away from interacting with the children. We had this conversation last week at our school. Mrs. So-and-so, she was doing some assessments and she was doing some this, and it's like, to just put all that down and just go and be with the children and talk to them, and through your conversation with them, bring on their learning or their experiences, rather than having a clipboard almost. Accountability across the board is not, nobody wants not to be accountable, but it's the high stakes, pressurized league tables, name and shame that are the problem often. So it's not about tracking progress or any of that. It's just about the way we've had to do it for so many years.
Yeah, and a really interesting comment in the chat there about the challenges actually bringing the governors and the data committee along with you, and I get that, because there are other people in the school who need to be convinced. So people are so honed in collecting data and so used to it. It's an environmental and ecosystem thing, isn't it?
Yeah. But what I think we've got to hold on to is that when the curriculum gets overly narrowed to a set of targets, so for example, it's not uncommon for the reception curriculum basically to be the 17 early learning goals. And on day one in September, you kind of open your online journal or your actual kind of portfolio of the children's achievements with those 17 early learning goals, and you're tracking their progress and telling people regularly, who's on track and who isn't on track. And that really narrows the reception curriculum. 17 goals can't be enough for a year of play and learning for children. No. And all the research tells us that the kids who miss out most when the curriculum is narrowed are kids with SEND and kids who are disadvantaged. So because we're serious about equalities, we've got to rethink that narrowing of the curriculum. But it's a tightrope to tread, isn't it? Because we want to be ambitious for children. We do want children to be doing well by the end of the EYFS and to be ready for Key Stage 1. But we've got to do that sensibly through a broad and balanced and wonderful early years curriculum that those children are gonna love and to go back to the word thrive. So it's not going to be straightforward, but it is going to be important to get this right. And
so at the moment we've got I think the term is early adopters rather than pilots or pathfinders. The terminology changes, isn't it? So what's going to be the difference, do we think, after the early adopters have had a go at it? What do you think the actual rollout will be? Is it now a time to really sort of make those points and express concerns? Or do you think it will change for when full rollout happens next September?
Well, I think the early adopters have done a brilliant job of highlighting the fact that you can feel that a statement has been made very clearly by numerous people, but it doesn't yet quite feel real in a school.
Yeah.
So the new guidance says very clear things about tracking and data and what's expected. And the DFE has very clearly messaged that the ELGs are not an accountability measure. And Ofsted have tried very hard, I think, genuinely to message that they are not going to look at that data when they come and inspect your early years provision. And that's been the implication of the education inspection framework from day one. So you've got all of those messages in place, yet on kind of week one in early adopter schools, there was a lot of pressure about how are we baselining the children, what's the data going to be, how are we going to evidence progress. So it's kind of saying to people, these messages are real, that they are real. So they're going to require some courage, but they, you know, don't disbelieve what is there, but grab that opportunity, grab it. It's what we want to do for the children and for our teachers and for our educators.
Yeah, and design some evidence-based policy. That'd be reassuring and good, wouldn't it? Sorry, Sarah.
Can I ask Julian a question? Will this, the things you've just been saying and responding to the chat as well, will these things be absolutely crystal clear, do you think, in the 2021 document? As in, you know, when heads struggle with their governors sometimes, or even their staff to go, oh, we've always done it like this, and what are we going to do when we don't have to do this anymore, or do it slightly differently, particularly with governors? It's got to be in black and white in this policy, which will be statutory, that ELGs are not an accountability tool, like you just said. And we all know that, but actually, like Jill, I think, said in the chat, but governors go, but we still want to know the data and we still want to know this. And so we need that stuff in black and white in a statutory policy to say what early years is and what it definitely isn't. And maybe even a section, or maybe we could provide this as NAHT, of questions that your governors should be asking you about new early years, which force them down a route that isn't data or that isn't percentages, or because it will be a new way of governors thinking. But if we provided governors with a set of questions to ask of leaders and of the early years people, I think that would be quite a good idea. To help them shift their focus from you know, percentages and stats results and blah blah blah, and also the points you make about special needs and EHCP children, and that this is about ironing out some inequalities, and governors have a responsibility to do that as well. So they have to help you in your journey to do that. So giving them the right questions to ask of us, I think, would be a good idea.
I think that's such a good suggestion, and that kind of leadership at every level, I think, is what makes change either work well or just wear us out with yet more of a sense that everything is thrown up in the air. It's worth saying that Development Matters, which I led on, is non-statutory guidance, and I would really encourage people to view it like that. In other words, here's a guidance document to support you as you think about your reception curriculum, or your nursery and reception curriculum, or your transition between private and voluntary nurseries in your school. It's there to support all of that. It isn't there to tell you what to do. And I've also constantly said to people, think of it as the floor, not the ceiling. These are some kind of minimal ideas of the things that we should be doing to make sure that children are doing well, but be much more ambitious in the ways that suit your children locally. So I would definitely put stress on that professionalism of the leadership and of the workforce across early years.
Yeah, that's a really good point about saying it's a guidance document, and it is actually a guidance document. There aren't musts and shoulds in there. It's your starting off point. And some great comments in coming through about managing expectations of people. And it's like, yeah.
And there's a good question. There's a good question there from Ruth, who's a nursery school leader. And so Ofsted have said, and it's on record in many places, that they will not look at data in nursery school inspections. Yeah. What they're going to look at in nursery school inspections is the curriculum you're offering to the children and the extent to which all children can access that curriculum and make progress. And they won't look at data. So it's a new ball game, if you like, for all of us, which I think has huge potential and it's positive, but we need to think our way around it, because it is a change. It's a change in focus. And just very briefly, kind of again linking to what Sarah said, which I think is so important, is that there's quite a bit of research which suggests that when you have a measure like the ELG, there's huge emphasis on getting children to get the good level of development, and that can lead in some cases people to put either to distort their whole curriculum just around the goals, or to give a lot of help to children who are sort of borderline children who might just squeak through the good level of development measure if we give them enough help. And that is quite likely why kids with SEND year on year in our country are falling further and further behind. But the other research suggests that often children in the early years who have difficulties with their learning, instead of being given targeted support to help them access a broad and balanced curriculum, they in effect get a different deal to the rest of the kids in reception or nursery. They just get on with doing other things that they sort of want to do and occupy their time, rather than us thinking really hard, how do I help this child with these needs to access the same sort of play and learning experiences that all of the other children are having? So there are some big questions for us to ask from an equalities point of view, and that's what I'm really looking forward to talking about very much.
Okay, great. Time's pressing on, so thank you for that, and thank you for those of you who've been commenting in the chat. I know it's not easy to ask questions in front of your peer group, but thank you for that, and thank you, Julian, for leading us through that. Also, Julian, I don't want to steal your and Tanya's thunder, and for you to sell us the farm now, and rather than getting the full version at the conference. So thank you for that. So sure. Clearly people are keen to learn more about this. It's interesting times, and it's still being developed as we speak, and policy is still hopefully changeable or persuadable at least. And thanks for the work that you're doing on that. That's tremendous. I'll probably just wrap up now and say, so for our conference, we've got 8 breakout sessions, not just Julian and Tanya, although I'm sure they'll be fabulous and hopefully massively oversubscribed. We've got Reece Swales talking about early learning goals, which will fit in nicely with that. We've got David Gumbrell talking about resilience. He's one of our pathway authors. So that will hopefully be interesting in terms of helping support you as a school leader. We've got Sinead McBurty talking about educational disadvantage in the early years and how we're all coping with that. Philippa Ollerhead's coming along to talk about how we make Ofsted work for you. I know Philip has been delivering that as a course for us, and that's been really, really popular with members, and obviously working with Ofsted's a key thing for us all at the moment. And then we got from Pathway again, Andrew Hammond himself, who's the Senior Director of Learning. We'll be talking about creativity, which I'm sure will be fabulous. If you've heard Andrew speak, I think you know it will be. I'm hoping he's going to get the sticky shapes and glitter glue out to illustrate his creativity. If he doesn't, I might just sue him. And then we've got Hannah Tudor, who also is a Pathway author, talking about, she describes the speech as presentation as building professional arrogance in our teachers, which is an interesting title and slightly controversial, and I'm sure that'll be interesting. And then finally, I think I've covered all eight. We've got Jack Bastian from Diversity Role Models who'll be running a session for us as well. So a wide and stimulating group of sessions to join in, as well as Julian and Tanya's, of course. And then our three keynote speakers, we've got Natalie Pereira of the Education Policy Institute. And Natalie and I both used to work for the Department for Education, so I'll be reminding her of that fact and see if we can get some inside information from her about that. Joe Mcconaughey, who works at the BBC on their Tiny Happy People programme, is their executive producer. We'll be talking about the work they're doing with young people and their families. And he used to be a Blue Peter presenter, not presenter, a director on Blue Peter, so I'll see if we can get a badge out of him, if nothing else. But the Tiny Happy People programme, really doing some really interesting stuff. And then we've got Professor Jess Staten of the Anna Freud Centre, who's doing lots of work on mentally healthy schools, and coming back to an earlier theme, what the evidence base is telling us about that. So hopefully we've got a fun, packed and exciting and diverting, I think, conference lined up for you. It's on Thursday the 12th, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you can find out all about it on the NHT's website, and there's details there of how to book, and the link to take you straight through to the Eventbrite link for how to deal with that, and hopefully lots of you will be able to join us there. If you've got any questions about today's session, or you want to contact us or to us, talk to Julian or Sarah or anyone else who presents for us here at NHT, do drop us a line at events@nht.org.uk. Have a look at our website, because there's loads of details about membership and the Wellness and Protect programme, which is there to support you as members in these difficult times, or drop us a line if there's any help we can offer you in putting tailored training packages together. Inevitably, there's a poll. There's always a poll, and that's flashed up on screen. If you have time to fill in that would be really helpful, because that helps us know what we're doing. And then just finally from me, coming up, as I say, Thursday 12th of November, mark your dance cards for the Early Years and Primary Conference. And then Thursday the 3rd of December, we're having our annual SND conference. And of course, both of those will be online, as pretty much everything is until further notice. But they'll be available. And we're, as I said, we're working to make them as close to the real thing as we can get them. So hopefully they'll be fully interactive. So that's what I want to say. I just want to say thank you to you for joining us today, and thank you for my co-presenters, Sarah and Julian. And I'll be quiet and let Sarah and Julian have the last word if there's anything they want to say in conclusion.
Thanks, Andy. Just also a reminder that Diversity Role Models, who are one of the 8 breakout sessions, workshops on the 12th, are the NHT's chosen charity this year.
They are indeed. Yes,
and they're quite a small charity, aren't they? But they do an immense amount of work, and Ruth Davis has chosen them this year as the NHT charity. So they're brilliant to listen to.
They are brilliant. And I saw their presentations on School Diversity Week, and they really hit the mark, and very clear and trenchant at the same time. Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to the 12th. And it's just great to, I've got the list in front of me about what's happening on that day as well, and it will be a great day, and it's great to think about it now, a few weeks in advance, so to get as many people involved as we can. So great to hear Julian speak as well this morning. Thanks, Julian.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Julian?
just really to support what Sarah's just said there about the kind of critical importance of that focus on diversity, and it's great to see that is right up there as an NAHT objective, and really looking forward to hooking up online with everybody and doing the conference. It looks like it's going to be a really good session.
Fabulous. Okay, well, let's set the bar as high as I think we need to. So we'll all aim for that, and hopefully, as you say, it'll be a really great session on Thursday the 12th. So thanks, Sarah, for joining us. Thanks, Julian, for joining us. Thanks for coping with our IT. Thanks to all of you who've come and listened to the preview, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Okay, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Sarah.